You got the controller. You got the controller. I was like, where the hell's the controller?
Okay. This meeting of the Hornell Industrial Development Agency is called to order. Chairman Parmalee is traveling today. I believe he's out of town, so I'll be running the meeting. We do have everyone else here, so we do have a quorum. With that, we have the secretary's report up first.
I'll accept a motion for the secretary's report that was in your packet.
So moved. Second.
Second, any questions on the secretary's reports? All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. That brings us to the treasurer's report.
Included in your packets and also distributed electronically is a copy of the current financials that was covering June and July. And I will entertain a motion to accept.
Everyone had a chance to look that over. So motion by John Carbone, second by Rick. Any questions on the treasurer's reports? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you. And committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Audits?
Audit. In June, out of the operating account, we paid $38,468.67. And out of the escrow account, $112,424.86. And in July, we paid out of the operating account $74,498.87.
Thank you. Nothing from personnel, anything from governance?
Nope, no report.
One thing is we've got to start having committee meetings. We don't have them and we're actually in violation by not having them. So, personnel committee, you only need that when you have a personnel issue, and usually that's raises, things like that, or discipline. But the other two, we've got to start having monthly meetings. How we did it at the county is we had them be prior to the actual meeting. So we did it the same day, so we don't got to ask people to come over, 20 times. But I think we have to start doing that. The other thing is when we have resolutions, and this is a county thing, this is how we did it in the county. When we had resolutions things, the governance committee did a lot of the legwork on those in their meeting, and they reported and recommended to the full board. Doesn't mean the full board doesn't know or ask questions, but the governance committee might sit for a half hour, a whole hour with a project, and then they look at it a lot more thoroughly than we would in an open meeting, just because of time constraints. So that's the kind of thing I think we ought to do. And we may have a lot more questions answered going in if we do that, because I mean, it could go on for an hour over one. And then the questions can be answered. They come to me and we find a way to answer them before we go. It's difficult to do that in our regular meeting because you have everything else on the agenda.
Why don't we start just scheduling that out ahead of time, so that way we just get in the habit of doing it.
I think the audit committee, I think twice a year was the.
Usually that's when you're doing the audit and things like that, and you're meeting with the auditors, but you don't have to. But the government should actually, if we have new business or resolutions, they should be monthly.
Done.
It puts a lot more, like I said, you pay a lot more attention, and then the full board. It's not something you can do you can't go over every detail in the full board meeting. You'd be here forever. But I think that it's a good way to handle that. It's a good way. And then, like I said, recommendations are made, or they aren't. And the governance committee, if they have questions, they ask, and that comes to the full board. And then we all know in which direction we want to go. The other thing I think we have to set, and I've talked to Dave about this, is Thursday, that we stick to the schedule. The fourth Thursday of the month, it can be 4 o'clock, it can be 2 o'clock. I don't think we should move the time. We're either going to meet at 2, we're going to meet at 4. Then you guys can adjust your schedules accordingly, the same way I do for other boards. You know when you're going to meet. There is and you're not trying to, move around and we don't change it. This is what it is. And
Yeah, I agree with that. What's the best time for everyone? 2 or 3, 4? If we're going to have the committee meetings, obviously you want to, start about an hour before the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Just so we're not.
It's good for me. The day is better for me, but I can adjust myself.
Then committee meetings would be about 3.
So 3 o'clock for the committee meeting, then 4 o'clock for the regular session.
Right.
So why don't we plan on doing that
Makes
going
sense.
forward?
That's good.
That can be part of the email when it goes out to the board members. That way it'll just be more of a habit and we'll just get accustomed to it. So, good. Okay, is there a motion to approve the audit committee report? Motion by Rick, second by Ed. Any questions on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes, thank you. That brings us to the executive director report.
We have 2 resolutions and it pertains to our portion of the Shaman Industrial Infrastructure portion. Both these were advertised, they both were done by sealed bids. We had the bid openings in this room. The one for the construction manager and inspection was a little different because I guess it's by regulation, but because we had to grade the people that bid the job. There was 2 of them that got 100 grades. And all we did is take the low bidder, which was CPL Engineers of Chase. They were the low bidder at $283,000. All the bidders, with the exception of their score, was fine. They were found to be responsible and spec compliant. But all we did is take the low bid. So because we did not take a higher bid, there really is no audit situation. We took the low number and everybody was compliant. And that's on the
Yeah, we're obligated to take the lowest responsible bid. Yeah.
And that's on, like I said, the management inspection services portion.
And just to add to that too, that the CPL, Clark Patterson is teamed up with Chase. They both are intimately involved with Alstom on this particular project. So they know the project. They don't have to have any lead time to get up to speed. And they know that particular. So they got a trailer right there. They don't have to mobilize. So it's
We also, there is no conflict because they did not get the construction award.
no, they
They
did.
were not the local.
And the thing is, we have an engineer with Fagan, but under federal regulations, because they did the design, they can't do the inspection. So that they were eliminated. They couldn't even.
And it was them that required this grading system, correct?
Right, yeah, the template was something that they use. And so they sent out their request for qualifications package to 8 firms. They also advertised it on the Dodge Report. We received 4 responses. And the responses were CNS, Fisher, CPL, and Lou Engineers. And we sat here and opened the bids. It was Mike, Mitch, myself, and Genzel, and that was the determination.
CPL and Fisher were the ones that aced the
Right.
qualifications. So we just picked the lowest bidder from them.
All right, is there a motion to accept the bid for construction management services from CPL Engineers and Will Chase?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ed, second by John. Any questions on that particular bid? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
The second one for the construction portion, it was a sealed bid. They were open on July 22nd, 10 a.m. I believe we had every bidder sitting here. I think they all, as a matter of fact, one of them come with his 2 kids. They were very little, but that's beside the point. They were all in the room. Again, they were all considered responsible and spec compliant. We took the low number, which was Ramsey Contractors for $3,527,358.
Is there a motion to accept that bid?
So moved.
Motion by Rick, second by Ed. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
I only have a couple more things, and Sean will go over the projects. Park Drive, we offered Steve Freeland, I offered him the $500 plus he paid expenses. We've talked back and forth. He has not agreed yet. He wanted me to get a pretty firm cost of the expenses, which I have done. I just got the one for Steve Hubertus surveying, because if he had to survey the whole thing, that was 1,100, but he doesn't need to do that. He can mark off, he can measure off pins and get it. We stayed 10 feet this side of the sewer or whatever it is at the city's request, so they don't build something over the top of it. So I will talk to Steve and see if he's gonna go for it. I don't know if he isn't, but
So the total cost is
the
11.
total cost is probably to him, the way, if Steve can do it the way he thinks he can, the total cost him would be about $1,300.
What about the closing costs on it?
Yeah, that's a lawyer fee
Yeah.
and the
That should
survey
be
fee.
put on.
Yeah, and it covers,
Yeah.
everything would be his. So he would come in less than 1,500. And I've told him that, but I'm gonna give him the exact number and see. He was hot to go, but now,
Well, he stopped me. He mentioned the fact that he didn't want to be hung out, didn't want to be hanging out there wondering what's going on. And he didn't want to, I don't know what he wanted to spend, but I know he was worried about it being too much.
well, I'll be honest, I think our price is fair. And to get that piece of
Yeah.
property go, I'd do it in a second. So I guess,
I was gonna say $1,500, I'll take it right now.
yeah, I'm
Right,
not
check.
understanding, but, I'm gonna get back with him. Here it is. If you want it, you want it. You don't, you don't.
Mhm.
So we have a standing offer on the table here.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Right here, 15.
I'm kidding.
I mean, for what he wants it for, to
Yeah.
package with the
It
existing.
should be helpful,
I
yeah.
think it'd be a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
I think it's very helpful for him, and it helps to.
But even
probably more attractive.
with, city parcels that we have occasionally that we, sell off, we always have the closing costs, the attorney fee and the filing fees added on to the piece of the parcel. So, whoever it is that's acquiring that, has both of those. So I think that's only
Yeah.
fair.
Without that part, you have no parking, because the prior owner used to drive right in the side of the building. He had an overhead door there and he didn't care. So he bought right about to the end of the building. And then I don't know who did the overhang, but the
That's Steve
overhang,
did that.
that's all the extra space you got there.
The cool thing is, I think it helps them with the fact that, the property could be repurposed, it could be reopened, it depends on what's gonna happen, but it makes it more
What happened
attractive.
with it is the key.
It's good, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of future use. You never know, somebody comes along and says, hey, I wanna do this, boom, it's already ready to do it. That's facilitating.
The other thing, I purposely made a trip through 114 Main after we had a big rainstorm. The water's not running in there. The roof is bad. And we talked about replacing it. I don't think it's anything we got to do tomorrow, because it rained a lot in 2 days prior. It wasn't wet anywhere.
The patching work.
And even the damage that was there that she talked about, it's cosmetic, it's very minimal. It's on the second floor. Actually, they put sheetrock in front of bricks, but the building's nice. Downstairs, her booths that she used, or the room she made, they got doors on them. They're big enough to be offices the way they sit. So that building is right now set up for an office building, and she's done the work. So, it's got a lot of uses and it's in good shape. And like I said, we talked about the roof, but it's not anything we got to do tomorrow, because it is not leak. It would have leaked then if it would have been. I don't know how bad it really
We're
is.
so limited for actually retail or restaurant space downtown. If you go to the difference of, they have what they call avoid fire, finance, insurance, and real estate on walk-in situations, because it eliminates potential commercial space. So I think we ought to, try to find tenants that will be making a commercial offering, not just somewhere, a real estate or insurance office, somewhere it's going to generate traffic, a restaurant or,
Well, so yeah, it is it's a nice space.
What is going on with the other side of that, on the other side of Maple City?
It's theirs. They're just expanding.
Maple City Savings?
They own the whole building.
They had an agreement when they purchased the building to allow the existing business to stay there for a period of time. That's since come and gone.
I didn't realize it encompassed that whole building, that whole.
That's a nice piece of, they're doing a nice job.
Yeah, nice investment there.
Mike, I noticed in the audit, the Lynn, is that all set now?
Yes, yeah, it's fixed. We've got to, and this other thing I've been doing, I've been going to our own properties. We've got to pay attention to them. That Lynn was in bad shape. It had a tin exterior and the block wall inside it caved in. It was gone. I'm surprised that if you got a heavy snow, the damn side of the building didn't cave in because all it was holding it was the tin. So we've got to pay attention. And they called me, or I wouldn't, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have known. And I went and looked at it and it was like, I had to fix it right now because it was that bad. But now they fixed it. They also, Universal also, a very little amount of money though, fixed the electrical building out back of Tuttle's, and that was a mess. Right now it's all closed in, new roof. But prior to that, those transformers were getting rained on. It's lucky it didn't shut down the whole city. But now and it really looks nice. They did a good job. Charged nothing, a couple $1,000. So it really looks good.
Anything else, Mike?
No, that is it for me.
All right. I'll kick it over to Sean.
Okay, well, you just awarded the low bid to Ramsey Construction. We got the contract documents and here, we'll get those signed and get them out. They've already signed them, as well as CPL. They just forwarded a signed copy of their construction service. We'll get that out. We just finalized the application, the CDB application for assistance for Alstom for their FF&E for the equipment. They have an equipment budget, probably about $6 million to outfit that building with, their industrial equipment plus desks, chairs, computers, whatever goes with it. So that's an eligible under CDBG. It's non-construction, so it doesn't affect the Davis-Bacon. So we just filed the final application for Alstom assistance, and that was for 600, almost 700,000. Well, it'd be 750, but 50 of that will go towards administration services, and that'll come out of that grant. We just filed the pre-application for the hotel project. As you know, that one of the part of their pro forma was with 5 Stars that they would seek, when they got their financing, they would seek CDBG assistance for FF&E. There's 80 rooms, and the industry guidelines for those rooms is that it's about $20,000 per room to outfit it for the hotel. So you're talking they're investing 1.6 million. You can't exceed 40% of that. Plus, it's based on job creation, 15,000 a job. We're using 41 full-time jobs at the hotel, and so they'll qualify for about 600. The pre-application has gone in. If they invite us to, and there's no guarantee that these will because they're grants. So, it's competitive. So there's no guarantee they'll get them, but they certainly are banking on it. So that pre-application went in. We're hoping to get invited to apply for full application. And if that's the case, we have to have the full application into them by the first Friday in September, which is next Friday. So we got a busy week ahead if that's going to take place. We also, in conjunction with the city, because the city has to apply for the CDBG. Also, with Restore New York, you have the Tribune Park Apartments, the proposal there. They plan to apply for Restore New York with the help of the city, so we had to do a letter of intent that is in. They haven't closed on the building yet, but that doesn't preclude them from applying for Restore New York, or at least with a letter of intent. They'll have to prove ownership by the time they apply. We were working on an ARC application, but we had a meeting with the ARC people via Zoom, and we determined that that wasn't really an option for us for that particular project. Mike and I had a Zoom meeting with Dave Whipple, who was with ESD, and he's a new program called Fast New York for shovel-ready projects. One of the issues I reached out to him was that we don't have 50 acres.
Yeah.
And now they've reduced it to 40 acres, but they put a caveat in there after we questioned them. They're saying, hey, if it's near multimodal, intramodal, and it's something that adds to, the center of excellence, which there's 17 acres down the South Yards that we've had several, Alstom looked at it at one time where the Shaman is. And then ATM, we all met in this building here with ATM or PKC, and they had an interest, and they kind of put the brakes on it in the interim. But we thought that if we could make a case, maybe that property, we could get money or money for an engineering study, and then maybe apply for money to establish some railroad switches down there. So the property would have access to the main line if need be. It would really be enhancing that ability to mark that as a intramodal, multimodal situation. So they more or less said when they announced letters of intent, we should file a letter of intent. Bud Sweet was on the call, Dave Whipple, Mike, and I. So we made our case, and Bud Sweet was very, very supportive. So once it comes up, we'll probably be submitting a letter of intent to apply.
I did have Steve Hubert, as I call him. He's going to go there and look for the pins, so we know exactly where we are.
Right.
If he can't find the pins, he's going to read the drawing and repin it.
Right. Yeah, because we have survey maps of that somewhere around.
I'm sure they're there somewhere.
Right.
I don't know where.
So then Mike and I met with Alstom and DOT officials at Alstom in regards to the Route 36 corridor improvements. We just wanted to make sure whatever, and we found this is 5 years off. This isn't something.
Maybe they don't have the funding yet.
Yeah.
So
they got funding.
That doesn't even get talked about
Yeah,
during the meeting at the high school. Not once was that even mentioned that they do not have the federal funding yet.
They got funding for the study,
Correct.
engineering study. So I said, well, what are we talking about here? He said, 5 years, maybe longer. Like, well, shit, I might be dead by then. But anyways, they good. They know that the lifeblood is shipping. It's from time to time shipping cars by rail. I mean, like the Chicago contract, that's heavy gauge. They can go on because that's a commuter rail line. The Amtrak, Acela train, that's heavy gauge. That can go on regular rail line, and it does. But if you get like light rail vehicles, transit vehicles around the subway, they can't go on the heavy gauge. So they have to be trucked. So if they start getting, and one of the brass ring that everyone's excited about is
New York.
the New York City. At some point, they're going to be letting one of the largest transit contracts in the history
That's coming up.
so if they get that, it'll be full bore. So that was what we were trying to do. And what was good about it was Todd Harity from Silk Road was in the room with us, and he really put out a very well thought out statement, and which was good. So they get it.
He covered a lot of bases that weren't really, discussed or looked into.
Well, yeah. Well, he's doing it from the transportation expert perspective. Yeah. And
Hey, one thing that I've brought up a couple of times, Sean, and you're aware of this, is the possibility of a right turn in and a right turn out from 36 directly going to Shawmut.
Right.
And I know there might be some property issues there, but I would think that would just make a whole lot of sense if we could make that happen somehow with DOT.
Their goal, and this is what was stated once in this design phase, is try to take as much truck traffic off city streets as possible.
Yeah.
That was one of the things, and one of the things we discussed. Another thing that was discussed without, and just very preliminarily, and just in passing, is that they spend a lot of money every month on rents for warehouse space in Hornell and everywhere else in Rochester. And at some point in time, once the smoke clears and we get a chance to really get serious, Mike and I had talked about it, that it may behoove us or even a private developer to build warehouse space at some place that's in close proximity. And they could take all their leases that they have, all these places, and combine them, and they'd probably save money. And have central warehouse, shipping, receiving, and that creates jobs too.
I believe we did that value home center for them, which they're now in there. They got that full, they already need more right now. They've been in there a month. They're they're not in full production on anything yet. When they get in full, and when Metro gets in town, because there is an overlap, they're gonna have a real problem with storage.
And you got to see, the Metro is a 10-year contract. And if by chance you're successful in getting some more other contracts, that building that's up there, the 138,000 square foot building that's built, that was built to be added on to by another 100,000 square feet. So that's a big project. So anyways, they understand what's going on. Then number 8, the ongoing saga of the St. James campus. I got a phone call. I kind of threw our hands up about it, but I got a phone call last week from Razak Associates, Mohammed Razak, and this Sergey, the principal of this biotech LLC, flew into New York City and met Mohammed at his New York City office, and Mohammed was loaded for bear because he had talked to us, and we said, hey, this is this, that, and the other thing, and this Sergey, not Vasily's out of the picture. Sergey said, well, I'll do whatever is necessary, and we're serious about this project, whatever. And he wanted to meet with this agency and the mayor. And I haven't heard back, but then I asked John to call Mohammed, finally got him the right number to call, and he had a conversation. So
yeah,
I don't think it still has a pulse, I think, but we don't know.
It's faint.
Yeah, right. Until we talk to Sergey and see where he's coming from. So
in the meantime, the city's still maintaining the property.
And rack up the bills.
Well, we are.
Yeah,
we are.
Are they paying them?
No,
We're
not doing anything. So this goes back into last year. They contracted with Butler Construction to do the outdoor property maintenance, and last year Butler did all the mowing and trimming and did a very nice job. And then as we transitioned,
checking on the inside too, right?
Well, they had a different company that was familiar with the boiler system. I can't think of the name, escapes me.
Jacqueline Pressler. Yeah.
I always think of
Pressler.
Yep. So anyway, we transitioned into the winter months last year and went from mowing and trimming to snow removal, and Butler continued and did all that, but then Butler got stiffed with the invoices, never got paid for the services rendered. So Butler just walked away and said, well, we're not going to continue. You're not settling up with us. We're not going to continue mowing and trimming into the next year. The grass and the weeds started growing early on in the spring when we did have rain, and got to the point where we couldn't ignore it any longer. Emails and the phone calls were made. No response. Then the city stepped in, and the DPW has been maintaining it ever since, which obviously triggers bills that are generated, based on the time spent, and we log every hour for each employee that's over there. And that's if nothing changes, we're going to have to be responsible for it in the winter, the snow removal. You're talking an entire city block, and in a lot of cases, both sides of the street because of the parking. So, it's a lot. Fire department issues have been numerous, responding to alarms. I sent an email very early in the fall last year, just forewarning the new owners of the cold weather here in the Northeast and how important it is to get the heating system up and going because of what will happen. And what I said would happen, did happen, and that's the pipes that start freezing, sprinkler heads start popping, and all of that happened. Numerous times the fire department was over there responding, broken water pipes and sprinkler heads and this and that. Finally, they set up an outdoor heating system, which you may have seen on Canasteel Street side, and they piped that in from the outside. It got into spring, they removed it. Where we stand now, I don't know, because they won't respond to a phone call or an email between my office, codes, and the fire department. Just nothing. Nothing.
Do we know where they stand with the utility companies?
The city has received at least, one or two shutoff notices. One from National Fuel, I remember early in the spring. I don't know that they actually shut it off. I think they may have paid that, but.
That'll be a real issue.
Well, anyways, this Sergey is supposed to come and we're supposed to have a meeting with him. We'll hope he brings his checkbook.
So to be continued.
And number 9, I remember last year there was the article about that Hornell was by this First Street Foundation did a study and found that Hornell was the number 1 most flood prone community in the state of New York, number 1. And that rattled me because it's just not true. We don't have any floodplain areas within our boundaries. And we're protected by 2 flood control projects, the Arkport Dam, the Elman Dam, plus we have a flood control system. Even during the flood of 70, they talk about the flood of 72. We didn't have any surface flooding. All we had was backup from the flood control system because the inflow pipes got backed up. So you had some flooding on Dennis Avenue. Of course, you had some flooding on Crosby Creek, but it was well handled by the flood control system. And we had some water in basements and a lot of heating systems replaced. But as far as any surface flooding because of, like the 1935, no, the flood control system worked.
Right, that was a 100-year flood.
Yeah, 500-year flood.
Wow.
And it worked. So we always operate, and the lending institutions, operate based on the FEMA map, which says there's no flood control system. Well, then this study comes out, and they sell these studies. They do these studies, and they're commissioned by development companies, by real estate companies. And so, if you're going to be an investor and you look at that report, well, geez, what am I going to have to do? Just stay away from that. So I kept Jeff Murray from the Gannett newspaper picked up the article. He didn't and picked up the study and saw it, and he just wrote an article on it. I mean, he's not responsible for it, but I kept checking with the Gannett newspaper, and they're saying they were going to do a further review of it and stuff like that, and it didn't happen. Well, in the meantime, when I posted, we sent something to the radio station that was posted on a radio station, must have got on the internet. Well, I'm getting calls from all over the country, Massachusetts, the state of Washington, Texas, Arizona, California, from people that have been impacted by bogus data. One of the guys worked for the federal government and the USG, U.S. Geological situation, and so he knows the drill. And he had to call them and threaten them to change the report. And the guys, well, we're not changing it. What do you know about it? And he told them his credentials, and they changed it. So I just think this whole thing is, I'm not saying they're not, they're throwing stuff out there based on only on data that they pick up.
You know what? And there's very little local control over the newspaper anymore.
Yeah,
You know, that
right,
wouldn't
right.
happen years ago, but
No.
that's just taking this over, and they
Yeah.
just, feed these
Right.
stories in there
Regional,
that,
yeah.
that don't come from,
Yeah.
and we have two very good reporters.
Right, yeah,
And
right.
Chris Potter and Neil Simon do a heck of a job,
Right.
but this stuff is just being,
They've got them covering everything from here, from Binghamton to through Allegheny County. But anyway, so I did finally got online. I got the complaint reports because it's considered a foundation, it's a not-for-profit 501c3. And so I filed a formal complaint and just said, hey, this is, and I said the Army Corps of Engineers wasn't contacted, the city officials weren't contacted, they had no basis, no local input, and just put this out there. I said it could cause irreparable damage. The Attorney General's office indicated that they received the report and that it's going to be looked into. So we'll see. But we just couldn't let that stand as a development agency, and on behalf of what represents the city, we had to challenge it. So we've done that, and that's all I have.
Yeah, going back to, John, you mentioned something about the right-hand turn off of 36.
right.
Well, years ago, we had along that railroad line, there was a road that went out there. Who has that right of way to that?
I think Spatunik has they brought the line itself. See that when Conrail abandoned that siding, it was a siding that served it was the old Shawmut in Pittsburgh. That was one of their lines. But I remember, wasn't all that long ago, I mean, at least in my mind, probably 40 years ago, that line still operated. And I remember Johnny Baker was doing the switching. They would still switch cars and would run. They went over there and loaded it up, and they would close. They'd close Seneca Street and would go over there, but they would get the scrap metal and run it out there, and then they filled it up, and then they'd go to Corbett's, and it would go over to Tracy and Jones Lumber, where the Hornell Housing Authority is now, and serve even the Corbin Woods, and that area. So that line went there. And the IDA got that, but
by the old Clark's gas station.
Yeah. And that siding was in there, and they came to the city and said, "Do you want to buy it?" And we looked at it, and we didn't know if there was any contamination or anything out there. Nah, and what we would do is it's a 30 feet from center, either side. Railroads are usually, so it's 60 feet. And I said, well, only, we don't know what we're getting to environmentally, but it doesn't serve our purpose. So they went to Spatunik and they snapped it right up.
I just think in the grand scheme of things, if we could somehow have that piece of the puzzle there, you would avoid all the heavier traffic that we're going to see on, Thatcher, and then they just, put it right on the 4 lane.
One of the things they're talking about is maybe, how the factories are located, coming right out onto 36 from there. You'd have to have a gate and you'd have to have flagging people. But when they were shipping, it would come right out on 36.
Pretty much the same thing.
Right, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would come out on the 36, and instead of going down, instead of going down Allen Street, making the turn, coming down Thatcher and making the turn. Now, this is all proposed, but what they do is they'd open up Broadway in front of the old city hall with the fire department. They'd open it up, and they could get off there, so they wouldn't have to go Allen Street or Thatcher
Do the
Street
loop around.
and come right straight off the highway down Buffalo Street and then onto Loader Street.
Right.
And straight shot down. That was one of the things that was talked about.
Yeah, well, that piece of the puzzle was included in DOT's presentation, opening up Broadway in front of a public safety building. And, and that's something that we're very open to. Because, of course, it gives public safety an opportunity to access 36 in both directions and not just the southern direction straight out of the building.
Time saving thing for them too.
Yeah. So,
So
I
if they
just-
did it off of 36, it's just an access road, private access road.
Yeah.
For them.
You know, the other thing, you know, if we're advocating for, you know, that entrance and exit to, you know, whether it's directly into Alstom or just the, you know, Shawmut in general, I don't think that needs to wait 5 or 6 years until that, you know, until maybe the state gets the funding. I think that's something.
DOT, what would their issue be with something like that?
They didn't,
They have to have the cash to do it.
yeah, you gotta have money and someone's gotta fund it. And, I think that you need,
Right. You got a point, though. I mean, the money there would be, it seems like they would see the necessity to that. That would be
Minimal.
But
Minimal investment to do that?
we'll see.
You know,
But they spend money other places, believe me, that probably they could do it.
I think it would save just a ton of headache, you know, on the city streets and the neighbors and, you know, the
Yeah, that's their objective. Their objective is to try to take as much traffic off residential streets as possible.
Because, you know, you also get, and it's not just the residents you get into, and we've talked about it in other meetings, raising the wires and,
Yeah.
and, you know.
Well, that's gotta be
traffic
done
signal.
because, I mean, the solutions we're talking about here, they're not gonna be readily available when they start shipping cars. So they're gonna be shipping the car shells after hours and they'll be scheduled and there won't be any disruption, you know, to the neighborhoods and they're well aware of it.
All right, no older new business, I don't
I
believe.
do have new, but I am going to start, one thing we've been lax on is project reviews. Any project that gets any kind of assistance should be reviewed once a year. We don't do it. And I don't know that we've ever done it, but I'm gonna start doing it and then we'll answer questions. And that means whether they got sales tax exemption or whatever, job, if they state they're hiring people, they gotta hire them. That's part of what they said they were going to do. We did them at the county every year. A lot of it you push back on the developer or whoever the client, they gotta answer your questions. But you just have an annual review thing that says, here's what they said they're gonna do and they're doing it. They said they're gonna hire the people, they're doing it. If they, and we had, on the county level, we had a major employer that got a lot of assistance for job creation, didn't do it. And if you thought hard, you know who it was, but I'm not gonna state it here. But it is an issue. Jamie and I have talked about it because Jamie says, you know, he's waiting for him to come and see him. They haven't been around. We're lucky they haven't come see us in a long time, but it doesn't mean they won't. So it's not a big deal to do it, but it just says, they said they're gonna do, they're doing it. And that's all it is. So, and I'll make a list of all the projects that were, and you know, my previous employer had one. They did what they said they're gonna do. I guarantee you, but, so we will do that and I will get them going. Hopefully I'll have them all done by the end of the year to start the next year. And then if we did get a visit, we'd be good to go.
Okay, sounds good. If there's nothing else, we do have a couple of issues, including a contractual issue to discuss in executive session. No other business.
We can also do, I've asked, and we can do this after the meeting because it's be a meeting with us. I have asked Sean Griffin some questions about what we can and can't do in executive session. We can always talk to him and we do not need, it's nothing, as long as he's involved. He's told me he'd be available at 5 o'clock or so. So, and I just want to clarify what we can and we can't do in executive session. What happens has to be so we are not violating. I'm not saying we are, but I want to make sure we don't.
Well, we're not taking any action in executive.
No, we're not taking it. No. But all Sean would do is, you know, we can ask questions and he will give us the answers. So if that would suffice for these issues we're talking about, we can do that.
Okay. Motion to enter into executive session. Motion by Rick, second by Ed. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. We are now in executive session. Okay, we've entered back into regular session. Is there any further business? If there is none, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion by Rick, second by John. Any questions on the adjournment? All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. We are now adjourned.
And then we
We
do
could do the Hornell, IDC.
So we'll open the door before we get going on that.
Little one in
We're in open session. Well,
Yeah.
we're in between meetings technically. Not that anyone's out there. But there could be.
Never know, yeah.
Okay, this meeting of the Hornell Industrial Development Corporation is called to order. Dave Parmalee is not here today, so I'll be running this meeting as well. With that, is there a motion to approve the secretary's reports in the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Dave, or I'm sorry, motion by Dave's not here. Second by John. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes passed. Thank you. Treasurer's report. That is that.
You're in. That's me.
It's not Dave.
Sorry, yeah. So in the packet, June and July also distributed electronically. I will entertain a motion to accept them as presented to you.
A motion by John, second by Rick. Any questions on the treasurer's reports? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All ayes. Thank you. Committee reports, audit. Is there
I
anything?
have nothing to report.
Okay, and I don't believe there's anything for personnel or governance, so there are no committee reports at this time. Executive director update report.
a couple things, and I did an application that I'd like to use for people that are applying for these city things. We have money there. One thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna check and make sure we are not violating any regulation. I don't believe we are. I think we can create a loan fund, and the corporation's doing it. That I only have one business has talked to me about it, and that business is going great guns. There's people working on that every day. So I'd like to get back to her, do the application. I think what we have to do is we have to decide on a limit that we would do and an interest rate we would do. I'm not so sure I would do it at 1%. That's a little, if we're gonna do it, we ought to get a couple percent. I mean, we're still giving them a break. And no collateral, no filings, nothing like that. So I think we look at the person. I don't want to do credit checks or any of that. We're doing it to help business. So I think we can determine how much we'd like to do, and it can be whatever. We will go to this limit.
I think we need some sort of structure.
Yeah.
Limit rate.
Limit rate and timeline.
Yeah,
Is this the COVID 250 that we did and we're getting that back? Is that we're talking about that
Yeah.
money? Yeah, okay.
As a matter of fact, we've gotten Tara Green paid it way ahead, but I think she sold the place. But she's paid way
Yeah,
ahead.
there's actually a ribbon cutting coming up. in the-
Milner's paid off, they're gone. So we've got a few stragglers, but Miss Lisa, she paid 3 months and she had some issues. But everybody's doing well except the ones we know about.
Did one person overpay?
John
Because I
Day.
saw a negative on
Yeah,
that.
she did. She made lump sum.
Nice donation to
I'm
us.
surprised she didn't pay it. She talked about paying it off, but everybody, with the exception of what we know about, is paying. And that one I've already turned over to John to take an income execution so we get our money. But to me, I would set a limit at 10, 15,000. I wouldn't go more than that. These should be short-term, help me out loans.
Yeah.
And, and we ought to decide on a term. We're willing to go out this long and this amount of money. So I think we decide on the maximum loan, the maximum term we will go, and the interest rate.
Well, you could do a tiered limit too.
Yeah.
One thing that we talked about at the last meeting was, I think the loans should be to people that have ownership or, that already own the building.
Yeah.
Versus they're just doing a startup where we're really flapping.
First time around, didn't we have a criteria? You had to owned the business for X amount of years.
2 years, I believe, is what it was. Yeah.
I just don't want it to be a startup. Like, I think that was the questions we had
The one
when,
we're talking about, frankly, is a startup, but a startup that's already put a carload of money in it.
but do they own the have they
No,
closed on the
they
building?
lease the building. They do not own.
They leased the building.
It's where the brew was.
Okay.
And he actually leased the building too. He never owned it. So,
Yeah, Doc Anderson owns that building.
of the loans we made, there's a lot of them that don't own the building. The COVID loans.
Yeah, it's quite a few that.
So does that leave, I mean, does that
Own it.
make us a little bit more vulnerable
What,
in the long run?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter if they own the building or not. If you didn't file a lien on it, take mortgage.
What are we talking about?
Unsecured credit.
That's what I like. What are you talking?
I mean, they're gonna be filling out this application and
Yeah.
then we're gonna review it anyways.
These are more
What's
risky.
the approximate
They are.
amount?
Anytime you lend money unsecured, it's a risk. It's a lot more riskier than if you have collateral.
When you look down the list here, and the majority of those don't own
No.
the building.
Yeah, and they also, we had a pretty good track record, we've done okay.
The only issue you have
Clean up
is,
there.
the only one I know we have no chance with is the exterminate. And John has him to file. The other thing is, the one guy that was gonna get a consolidation loan,
Mm-hmm.
he got it and we didn't get paid.
Hmm.
And I know that for a fact, and I'm on him about it. I said, but I did find out he didn't get anywhere near what he wanted because he didn't have collateral to cover it.
Gotcha.
What, do we have a dollar amount that they're looking for in the place of the brute? Do you know what, in the ballpark or no?
I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's,
But they got contract, they're there every day.
yeah, they've got a lot of money into it, and I think.
And they're looking for a September, I think, October opening. And this is just and they put a huge amount of their own money. I think they put 80 to 100 grand in it.
That's true.
That'd be nice to have something downtown again and, be able to have outdoor seating.
It's much larger. I just put some wireless in there and it's much larger than it was. They removed, there was a wall that extended way out and they moved it.
Yeah.
I think they increased their capacity by 25 or 30 people inside. So they'll be able to serve a bigger crowd, generate more of an income.
So they did move that wall back. It was always interesting because that hallway.
It came in and the weirdest thing was the longest hallway.
Space.
Yes. And there's a nice
You know,
kitchen
I
there.
tell you,
but
too, that girl did a beautiful business plan. She must be a business graduate.
Yeah.
It really is good.
Mhm.
Impressive. The daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they've done their research. They've put a lot in it. But they have, and I think it's short term that they don't want to keep forever. It's just something to get them open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything further?
So I will do this app and I will send it to everyone. You guys can look at it. And it does, like I said, it doesn't have credit ratings. We get into that. And it's bad business.
Yeah.
We're not a bank.
We can work on it and, we can review it, fine tune it as needed.
And
And
I'll give you recommendations that I would have. And go from there.
if there's no further business.
Well, the only other thing was our donation policy, because we've talked about that and we really don't have one yet. And we've got to decide what we want to donate to. If we go by CBO rules, which you don't have in the corporation, you don't donate to anything. You just don't. You don't buy a drink. You can buy a dinner. You don't put a retirement party on for everybody. So my thing is, I think we should still do donations, but I think the donations should fit our mission. And our mission is economic development. The library, I think we should give them money. If you don't have one, it deters from what you have in downtown. The drum corps show, I did not know about that. Somebody pulled the board and I got an invoice to pay the invoice. Well, I didn't pay the invoice because we're going to decide today whether we want to pay the $1,000. I don't have a big issue with that either, because I think that is good for the community and the economy.
It draws people,
Yeah.
from out of town into the city, and they're going to grab a bite to eat.
Based.
There's stuff for the convenience stores, the swing stations, and probably even some of the hotel motel business. So, yeah.
But I think, and we got into December, when you have when you have somebody you give money to that, be honest with you, don't meet your, say, I need your money to pay these bills. Well, how the hell do you know we're gonna give you any money? We're getting carried away when we do that. Go ahead.
So two things with this, I agree. I think that's a good project. It brings people to the area. The principal side of things that I would like to address is, one, I think if you can, Mike, develop an application, like a request,
Yeah, no,
a request form that gets submitted for anyone requesting a charitable donation for something.
I mean, the other thing is, I don't know that you really want to advertise it.
no, we shouldn't. But the other thing I always wondered about though,
Because the funding,
I would agree.
You shouldn't.
you know about the funding going out, but what comes in?
But I also
no,
don't,
that's a fact. But the other thing is,
Is it just a one-way street?
you've got to be careful, because if I give money to this guy.
Yeah.
And don't give money to this guy, and they're pretty much the same thing. How do you explain that?
so that's where I'm bringing up an application where you actually have to write a little blurb. How is this going to affect the economic development of the area? What's your projected number of people coming into the area? Justify what's going on. But the second thing is, I really think it's very inappropriate for us to discuss finances via email anymore. That should not be an email approval. We should meet and have a formal,
Well,
this is
that-
what
that-
something's for.
Outside of any.
That's why I didn't respond to it,
Outside of
just because
emergency hours.
That one came together very quickly.
and no background,
But I do
which,
not-
like I said, I think the project, that's a good thing.
But I think we got to approve things as a group. I
Yeah.
don't
You're talking about the
understand it in
Google
invoice.
Show-
Yeah.
Show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does have it does
Oh,
have a
yeah.
past history, and everybody
Yeah.
here has.
So are we okay with the $1,000 donation to that?
I am, yeah, I am.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a
Motion
motion.
by John, second by Ed, all
Third.
by Rick. Are you recording all the motions?
Yeah.
Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
And what I'll do is I'll put together some kind of and if you got any comments, send me the comments. What we should be, I think if they meet our mission, we
Mhm.
should, and our mission is economic development here. And,
And
I think things like the library though, if you don't have one, people aren't jumping at the chance to come here.
And I think you keep the donations in the city.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But the one, are we on? We've been,
Yeah, we're on.
the one, people shouldn't call me and say, I've got to pay A, B, and C. You haven't given me my donation this year.
Well, when they're factoring donations in their annual budgets, that's not,
If they have counted on in the past and we have donated in the past, then they, yeah.
are we funding an operation?
Yeah.
That's not what the IDC is for. So,
Very good.
I have nothing else.
anything from board members?
No.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Rick, second by John. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes.